Right now on Close Up with the Hollywood Reporter.
Oh, yeah, there was a huge orgy.
I love it.
Of course, you couldn't show it on CBS, and it never became a storyline, thank God, because then how do you cut around that?
We get the inside scoop from the talent behind the year's most watched reality shows. Julie Chen, Big Brother, Mark Burnett, Survivor, Shark Tank, The Voice, Kat Deeley, So You Think You Can Dance, Craig Piligian, The Ultimate Fighter, Bertram van Munster, The Amazing Race, Nigel Lythgoe, So You Think You Can Dance. Welcome to Close Up with the Hollywood Reporter. I'm Stacey Wilson, awards editor.
And I'm Lacey Rose, television editor.
Let's get started.
What's the craziest moment on one of your current shows that didn't make it to air?
Oh, yeah, there was a huge orgy, apparently. It was the winter, it was January, it was the writer's strike. So CBS suddenly was like, guess what? We're putting Big Brother on, not in the summer, but January, February, during the writer's strike. So they rushed the season together, and all I know is someone said, did you watch Big Brother After Dark last night? I said, no. They said, you need to watch. It was crazy. There was literally a big orgy. I didn't go back and watch it. I heard the details. I didn't need to go back and watch this. But now I'm talking about it, I think I should.
Is it available somewhere?
I'm sure with YouTube these days. But they said, and the house guest, they said, you know, even so-and-so like that you normally saw like so straight-laced. I was like, what? I was like, what did you feed them for dinner in the Big Brother house? But they said, yeah, it was kind of crazy. Started in the jacuzzi with two and then, but then of course, you couldn't show it on CBS, and it never became a storyline, thank God, because then how do you cut around that?
It's also hard to top, too.
All right, someone top the orgy.
I don't know if we can. That's a tough one. You got to have some good stories on Amazing Race. You go around the world every freaking year.
Yeah, we try, but twice a year.
You can say it in Dutch if you want.
Twice a year.
Understand it.
No, I'm not so good anymore.
You know.
But, you know, they're so obsessed with racing that this kind of stuff almost doesn't occur. It's all done in real time. So, yeah, no, we don't have these moments that we couldn't show. It just hasn't occurred, not anytime recently. We run into situations as a production, as producers that are really odd and bizarre. But
any good ones?
Actually, well, you know, a good one is many years ago I went to Papua New Guinea, and I met the mudmen of Goroka. They're about this high, and they're all dressed in mud, and they wear a big helmet with big teeth on it and look very fierce, and a penis cord and a bow and an arrow. And I said, you guys are famous with the bow and arrow. Yeah, we are. Okay, so tell me, we have come here with a big silver bird from very far away to film you shoot the bow and arrow. And the guy that's with me said, Bert, don't screw with these guys, okay? It sounds like you're screwing with them. I said, now, let me just poke this guy a little bit. So the leader, we have about 100 mudmen standing around there, and the leader says, through 4 translators, you wanted me to shoot a bow and arrow? Yeah, that's 25 Australian dollars. I said, wherever we go with the bow, with the big silver bird, it's not, the price of bow and arrow is not 25 Australian dollars, it's 15. So the guy says again, stop screwing with this guy. I said, so I negotiated 20. He said, but I want the money right now. So he gave him the money, he puts it in his pocket. I said, no, line up and shoot the stuff. So the bow and arrow, all the guys stand up and they shoot the bow and arrow and they all miss the target. I said, come on, guys, we just made a deal for 20 bucks. You know, I gave you the money up front because you're afraid I wasn't going to pay you. What's going on here? And they negotiate and says, well, target is 25 bucks. So I said, here's another 5 bucks. No. This guy's dressed in mutton this big. He said, no, we want another 25.
Where did he put the cash?
That's what I
He put it in his penis cord there on the side there.
Oh, on the side.
There was a story on Survivor in Africa. Burnett wanted camels in some, he wanted camels for some challenge we were doing. So Tom Shelley and I embarked on finding a fucking camel and a camel keeper. I don't know if you remember this. So Tom and I go and we're looking for a camel holder, guy to hold camels, and a camel trainer. And we went outside of, I don't know, we went an hour away, hour 5, whatever we went away. And the guy brings out the camels and he says, And we said, okay, we want camels to do certain things. I cannot remember what the challenge was. The guy has the fucking camels standing there and he says, I can make these camels go on their knees. I said, well, that's pretty cool. I said, that could be great for the challenge, and Tom was going great. He takes out a Louisville Slugger and he starts smashing the camels in their knees, just smashing them. And until they got to go see, they get down on their knees. And I'm looking at him going, I looked at Tom, I go, there is no freaking way that we can have this challenge on Survivor where the guy comes out, first hits the camels with a Louisville Slugger in the knees, and then have them do the challenge that we want. We came back and we told you, we said, hey, look, there wasn't any camels there. We can't do anything with camels.
I want to hit that guy with the Louisville Slugger.
Oh, it was horrible. And I mean, not much is horrible, but that, Shelley and I looked at each other and said, we got to go back to Burnett. We're going to tell a camel story.
Animal cruelty aside, is there a moment in one of your shows that you can recall worrying that someone had been pushed too far, a contestant, a participant? Mark, does anything come to mind?
Yeah, yes, on Survivor, a lot. In the last season, we had 3 evacuations. And
was that the most you'd ever had up until that point?
yes, in one season. And it's because of the humidity in the cuts and people getting infected mainly. And also just being so hot and then trying so hard on the challenges. But yeah, we've a lot, and we tend to show it though. The question at first is what you don't show. We tend to show most things.
How worried do you get as a producer when those things happen?
Really worried. But you know, Jeff Probst runs the show. And I know if my phone's ringing, it's 3 or 4 in the morning, it's Jeff. It's not a good phone call. It's not
So
a good
he's
phone
really
call.
telling you what's happening on the ground and keeping you updated?
Yes, and making value judgments. We have a very good medical team. I mean, me and Craig obviously worked for a long time on Survivor together. You know, and, you know, touch wood, that we've put together a good team that can make good judgments. But something I didn't show on a show was on the Bible. We actually finished the Bible and we screened it in a movie theater, and some little Chinese guy came over, a Christian guy from China, and said, I think you got the loaves and fishes wrong. I'm like, what? He said, you just showed 5 fishes and 2 loaves, and the Bible says 2 fishes and 5 loaves. I'm like, Roma, no way. No, it was finished, no way. And sure enough, in all the melee of making 10 hours of the Bible, we somehow, in the business of production design and everything, so we had to go back to London and change it. When you look at it now, you can see 2 fishes and 5 loaves. It's CGI, you could never tell. But we'd finished it and we're delivering it.
God.
And there's a little Chinese guy who said...
He was a messenger from God, okay? He's a little Chinese guy, and my cousin.
So, you know, you're going
Comes down
around
as
the
a little
world.
Chinese guy, I guess.
And going around the world, you know, it is like non-stop. I mean, safety is number one, obviously. What we're doing also the same thing. I mean, the people that get hurt sometimes are our security team. I mean, they're the ones that are not drinking the water. But going on around the world brings a lot of liability and a lot of issues. But we've been very, very fortunate through the years because we are very careful with what we're doing.
And Nigel and Kat, do you have stories from So You Think You Can Dance about contestants who've maybe been pushed to their limit?
I'm not sure about push to the limit. We had a guy a number of years ago. I mean, the kids get there about 6 o'clock in the morning. They don't eat and they sit there all day until it's their time to audition. And this poor guy built up a lot of wind and gas as he was waiting there. And the poor kid went on stage, and every time he did a ground batman, a big kick, he farted. A jetta, he farted. Dropped into splits, he farted.
So how did you manage this?
We couldn't show it. I mean, it was just too... And thank God he wasn't dancing to Wind Beneath My Wings. But it was just... You just felt... Your heart went out to this guy, you know. He was just so red-faced, and we as a panel just couldn't stop laughing.
Kat, were you there for this moment?
I wasn't there for that specific moment because quite often I'm off camera and talking to people. But it's quite interesting that even when you do push them, I don't know, dancers are a very specific breed. They're a very unique type of person, and I've seen kids dance on broken ankles and split toes, and they just do it, and I don't know what it is, and it seems to be very specific to their, you know, to them being dancers, and they just get on and they do it.
It almost becomes a religion. Dance almost becomes a religion. It takes over your entire life, you know?
They fall apart afterwards. Once the adrenaline stops and it dies down, they definitely fall apart, but they pretty much can handle anything you throw at them.
That's good.
All right, everyone at this table has worked with controversial, colorful, and at times controversial personalities. Sometimes that is wonderful for these shows. Sometimes that becomes a liability for these shows. You've worked with Lindsay Lohan. You've had some house guests that were questionable. Donald Trump is no picnic. I'm curious, when were you sort of most frustrated and challenged by trying to manage the talent you work with?
For me on Big Brother, we can't really manage the house guests because you can't dilute or infect the game. But the thing that was hardest for me to watch, well, there are two things. The main thing was when we had overt racism in the house. And this girl named Erin, who when she was first cast, we thought she was going to be America's sweetheart, the girl next door, the gorgeous blonde from Texas, sweet. In the interviews, now looking back, I think she knew how to give those beauty queen answers. But then, you know what? After a few weeks, that beauty fades when the inside comes out, and the inside is ugly. I mean, ugly is to the bone. And when she started saying homophobic things, racist things, you know, she was making fun of the local nail salon. Oh, you pick color, you pick color. And I thought, okay, you know what? Maybe I can make that joke because I'm a member of the tribe, but you are not a member of the tribe. And that was like the least offensive. It was just so ugly. And what can you do? And I also thought, here's a young girl. She's going to come out into the real world and she's not going to know what hit her. Because she thought she was like the most loved and glamorous one. You just got to lay back and let it happen. But there's a human part of, you know, all of us who work behind the scenes at Big Brother, we think, we can't let any of these house guests get in harm's way. A lot of times they're their own worst enemy, but you can't infect the game.
See, the good news on like shows like Survivor or American Idol, or You Think You Can Dance, or Amazing Race is every season their cast changes. So you only get them for one season.
Yep.
I have to live with my fucking lunatics for as long as the fucking show lasts.
Which is a long time in your case.
In the case of like Ghost Hunters, it's 11 years, you know, and in you know, Fast and Loud's been 5 years, and you know, we got Lucky Ultimate Fighter changes every season, but on some of these shows that last long, thank God they last long. I'm a very happy man that they do, but you know, the talent goes through a whole metamorphosis of being good people, then being not so good people, then being absolutely the worst human being on the planet. And then by season 7, they start being a good person again. You know, so you really get to, you live with your, David Tutari's been on the air with us. We started in like 06. And it's now 2016. We got an episode 26 episodes for 2000. It's like 10 years you start really living with these people. They become part of your real extended family. You get phone calls from Probst in the 3 a.m. I get phone calls because the cake wasn't delivered or the cars didn't go fast enough.
But when they get to the point when they're the worst people, I mean, that phase of things, do you have to step in?
Oh, absolutely.
And what does that look like? I mean, what is it?
It looks really ugly. It's a tough situation, especially when you have, you know, agents that want to interject their thought process on what you think the show should be and what your talent should be doing. You have agents out there that think they can run their talent better than we can. Well, they can't, because we have to go fly down there and talk to them in a very kind of tough way and say, this is how this has to go. And you have to do it. You have to get on a plane, you have to sit with your talent, and you know, you have to do it all the time.
We've had situations where the contestants would confront our camera teams, and really in a very aggressive way. And you're like, I'm gonna kick your ass, you're an asshole, et cetera, et cetera. And we had people that were really, really difficult because in the battle, and I have to sit down with these guys.
I want names. Okay, go ahead.
There's two brothers, they were pretty nasty, I must say, and they were confronting our guys, and it was really obnoxious. And I tell people up front, these guys are your friends, they run with you, they're not going to tell you, they're not going to help you, but they can run faster than you, you can be sure of that. But they would, it's happened on occasion, I always tell them, please do not confront our guys, because they're hardworking guys, you know. And they don't get the $1 million winning, they also run around the globe, you know, with the 50-pound camera.
It always tends to be when they have a little bit of knowledge and they think they know how the game works, but it's just a little bit of knowledge. And so they think that they can go into something and manipulate in exactly the same way that you were saying about your lady. They think that they know what to present and how to be in a certain way, and they don't know enough. They know a little bit, and that's actually very dangerous. So they portray what they think you want. You're always better to go into any reality show just being you. Just absolutely being you, because at some stage or another you'll get found out. Just fucking swear if you want to fucking swear. You know what I mean?
And the hope is when you come out, you know, I always say Big Brother is like holding a mirror like this. And when you come out and you see who you really are, it's up to you to say, I don't want to be that person. Or, well, I'm that person and I own it and I deserve all this hate mail I'm getting. Some people do change, I think, and other people, they turn away from that mirror that they looked at and they just ignore it.
Well, this brings up a controversial moment this year, which is the Duggar family, what they're going through and what TLC decided to do in pulling the show. What would you have done in this situation if you were producers on the show? And how do you make decisions like this when these sort of ugly facts come out about your subjects' lives and things that maybe you clearly didn't know when you launched the show? Mark, how would you have managed this?
I think TLC did the right thing by pulling the show. There's no way to deal with something like that. You remember, in the end, it's a commercial business where advertiser dollars are running the enterprise for TLC, as well as their cable partners paying subscriptions. And neither the cable partners nor the advertisers are going to put up with that. And I don't have any details or any judgment because I don't know the facts of what actually happened. But from what I read, I think they made the right move immediately. And I think a decisive move is critical in these situations.
How did the rest of you feel about all of that?
You have to put yourself in the shoes of the victims and ask the victims, what do you think we should do? Do you think you would be comfortable if we continue to let these cameras roll to see how this affected you and how you're seeking help, and if that could be educational or beneficial to anyone watching? If you're not comfortable with any of this, we're pulling our cameras out. And then see what the advertisers say. Yes, because you have to do it if and by the way, maybe it becomes the show that everyone's talking about. We're all talking about Caitlyn Jenner. Let's make it maybe taking something so ugly and learn from it and grow from it and turn it into something that can help others out there, other victims who are watching, whether they are the victim or they are the perpetrator who feels that they have an illness and they don't know how to handle it.
If you were helping Caitlyn steer the ship of this crazy ride she's about to take in her docuseries, what advice would you give her about how to sustain the quality of the show, but also this genre that's probably about to emerge of, documenting the experience?
She's owned it. And, Vanity Fair came out with a beautiful picture and, the switch has been made. So now and if they own it and they say that's the way it's going to be, look, who are we to judge?
I'm sure it means a lot to a lot of people because, for instance, I know in India, I know several people that have gone through this in India, of all places. Other places around the world that are really, really suffering. And I think a situation like this could really
It's amazing
put it out there.
She's lived in the Kardashian goldfish bowl, the media goldfish bowl, and the biggest secret is the one that she's been holding inside herself. And I think it's fascinating now to see how she handles it in this situation.
She had a lot of years of research too, knowing how to.
Yeah, a lot of it's going to be to do with the producers now. Not just her, and I think that's important. And we've all got a responsibility with whoever we put on television. And I don't know how much people realize how many background checks we do on contestants before we put them together. If you're going to put them in a survivor situation, you want to know beforehand that they're not going to go crazy. And once we put people in the same house as each other, you want to know that what their background is. So, a lot of research goes into who we put on television in the first place.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, LA is a very accepting community and very liberal in its views, which is great. And New York, but in the middle of the country, it's going to be really interesting to see how they judge it, because they're going to judge it. They're going to, because he was the greatest single athlete that ever lived, right? So to see that hero suddenly change the lifestyle, it's going to be interesting to watch it unfold. I think it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be a real study in American culture on how they accept it or not accept it. And
how long it takes.
For one, I'm going to watch because I find it absolutely fascinating.
I think the bottom line with Caitlyn Jenner is that Caitlyn Jenner has to tell the producers at E, I am the executive producer, I have creative control. No one can know what I'm thinking and what someone else's brain wants. If I tell you this can't go in the show, it can't go in because it's not how I feel. Don't exploit me. Let's not turn this into, and if Caitlyn, if she has creative control and she feels like what America is saying is true to her voice, well, then you've just created an incredible situation that is going to enlighten and educate so many people on a topic so many of us know so little about.
Did you see that, Reed, it was on the web, the Wachowski brothers, the one that transgendered, and it's an absolutely incredible speech that she gives to an HR conference, and it is a remarkable speech, and it's something that people should look at before they make any judgments.
And you have to say she has a tremendous amount of courage. Just like as much courage as in the Olympics, she has now. So, the courage ran through both lives, which is really interesting. Right. He's just a courageous person.
I think that's right.
But when Caitlyn enters the Senior Olympics, and she's going to kick ass and another gold medal for Caitlyn. And then there'll be a Bruce medal and a Caitlyn medal. That's how E gets into sports.
There you go. This is a genre that has struggled a little bit of late. And I'm curious sort of why you think it's been so challenging to launch hits in the way that it was easier to do years ago.
In the beginning, nobody ever heard of reality until Mark and myself showed up on the scene. And there was the brave Les who saw the potential of this and said, these are franchises, which was miraculous. This is 15, 16 years ago when nobody ever heard of this. The only show that was on was Cops. That I produced for 9 years.
So what makes it so hard today?
But I don't think it is.
It isn't.
No. So you look at recently, I did okay with The Voice.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
By the way, I remember you guys saying, how's that going to work? There's already Idol and X Factor. The Voice won't work. You were wrong. And so now there is no
I think
Idol
there's
and X
been,
Factor.
there's
and
been
then Shark Tank. We launched Shark Tank. So Shark Tank's a new show. I've just launched Beyond the Tank, which is a hit show. So it's not that it's hard to launch shows.
There's been a couple of large shows that have failed with...
There always are.
Yeah.
But how many scripted
Utopia
shows?
was, one major one that everyone thought was going to be huge. I suppose Rising Stars was another.
Yeah, but how about scripted? I mean, look at how many pilots get made.
All the time.
How many scripted shows work every year?
The good shows will always survive.
80% fail.
The good shows will always survive.
I have to agree with you. Same thing in cable.
It was the fault of the formats rather than reality shows, as far as I'm concerned.
We're all pretty much in the network TV business, right? So any network is going to have great news, sports, scripted comedy, scripted drama, unscripted competition, unscripted non-competition. It's got to be all of the above to coexist, and all those things genres will stay around, because the silly question I often get asked, is reality going to go away?
Yeah.
It's never going away.
No.
It's just a matter of, as everyone's saying, if it's good. I mean, everyone's sitting at this table because they've contributed really good work in the craft, and as long as it's good work, you have a chance.
Yeah.
And some great shows don't make it, but you can guarantee that crappy shows won't make it.
I think that's fair. Do you guys agree? Do you feel like the genre isn't challenged right now?
I think that it will always be there. I think the biggest thing about reality TV, and it doesn't matter whether you're trying to survive somewhere or you're doing a terrible job or it's The Voice or a singing show, whatever it is, all anybody wants to see is that real human story. That's all anybody wants to see. And it doesn't matter whether it's on Big Brother or whatever it is. When you can connect other human beings sitting in their living room to the human beings that are on the TV screen, and you learn their story and you learn what makes them tick, and sometimes you love them and sometimes you hate them, and sometimes they triumph and sometimes they are just the lowest of the low. everybody likes that human element, and everybody wants to know, oh, there's a little bit of me in there, or, oh my God, I wouldn't have done that like that. And that's all anybody wants, is two human beings just want to connect, and it doesn't matter what it's about, that's what they want.
And as long as it's relatable to the people, the content will exist and it will shine.
Yeah.
How has this been true in your shows specifically, so you think you can dance in your shows, Craig?
Go ahead.
Well, on our show, it's always, dance is the narrative that runs through the show, and what people really connect with are the kids who are on there, actually.
How it changes their lives.
Yeah, and the big thing is that, we say it's America's favourite dancer. We don't say it's the best dancer, because actually, of course, they have to be of a certain standard, and of course, they have to be good, and of course, they have to be able to move on live TV. But it's all about who connects the most with the American public, and that's what gets people off their couches and makes them pick up the phone and vote. And so there's something that you have with people that win our show where they have this charisma, this fairy dust, this indefinable something that just draws people to them.
Is there a contestant who speaks or sort of comes to mind as someone who's really kind of stood out on your show and
Travis.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, season 2, there was 2 guys who came right down to the very end. There was Travis Wall, and then there was Benji Schwimmer. And Benji Schwimmer actually won because Benji was the one who is, larger than life, and he had some comedy, and he always threw himself into everything. And Travis was actually the better dancer, but he was quieter. But what he did was, and he didn't win the show. But what he actually did was he turned around and took the platform that he was given, and he elevated himself to a position where he then went off and became a choreographer too, and he went and worked at that, and now he's being nominated for Emmys himself for his choreography work. And so it's one of those stories that you've seen where you've seen the progression of it, and people know these kids' names because they've been part of their story. So that's what it is for me.
Yeah. I mean, when you find a good, like we found a gal on the internet, she had 6 million YouTube hits. And we created a show called on TLC, My Big Fat Fabulous Life. Have you seen it or heard about it?
Yeah, of course.
So she was really thin, and in college she got the disease that made her get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So she had like 6 million YouTube hits, and we contacted her and we did a tape with her, and then we sold it to TLC. And if we'd have exploited it differently, or if we'd have handled the situation differently, that show, to everybody's expected, would have gone away, to your point too. But we did it in the right way. She got to explain what happened to her. You saw the history of her growing up. We did pictures of her when she was really thin, and then she had this, awful disease hit her, and how she's accepting it and how she's doing it. It's become a huge hit.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of shows, they didn't promote it much. Because TLC just doesn't, do a lot of off-air, on-air promotion. But if you do a good show and it gets out there because of the internet and because of people, you're going to have social media. Social media is building shows more than television promotion is building shows. The talks between the people, they can, because the networks, you guys work in mostly big networks. I work in little networks. They don't promote. They don't. They want
There's so many shows too.
But also, Craig, on the big networks, you're also fighting for GRPs with scripted shows. And really, the networks make much more money from scripted shows. So their dream is that all the scripted shows do better because the longevity of selling it. So we're all fighting for the promotional. But what Craig's saying is so true. You have to come up with a good core idea for a show, and if it's noisy, and it will translate and permeate beyond the TV screen, then you have something. Because you cannot, as Craig is saying, you should not rely upon the broadcaster or the cable channel to do all the work for you. If it's that good, and like all the shows here we're talking about, that whether it's a dance show where lots of people like dancing and talk about it, when you're talking about your TLC show, with the woman who went through that, or other thing, Dirty Jobs. These are shows that people talk about because I wouldn't want to do that job. Of course, Big Brother creates a lot of noise around it. Everyone loves Amazing Race, Survivor. Shark Tank gets a lot of talk because people have their opinions about whether you would invest in that business or not. These are noisy ideas. If you don't have a noisy idea, you're unlikely to launch the show.
It's like if you didn't know who won American Idol that night or who got sent home, you were out of the conversation for many years.
It's true. But I will say on the other side, we're all talking about you have to have a good show, you have to have a quality show.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in reality, there is something to be said, and I don't know what the lasting power is, shows that do exploit, that are not well done, and one that comes to mind might be Here Comes Honey Boo Boo. So there was a lot more that happened behind the scenes that led to its demise. But that being said, I think sometimes there are exploitive shows that can get like a lot of noise in the beginning and then they fizzle out. Because at the end of the day, it has to have very good content and it can't be exploitive. So it just may be a big pop.
And I think what Julie's hitting on there as well, you gotta be really, really careful with things around kids.
Yep.
People, there's no leeway. There's no leeway
Absolutely.
around kids.
No.
And so if you look at the things, the Dugars and Honey Boo Boo happen to both be on the same channel, both have problems, and both involve kids. People are not going to give any chance of leeway or second guessing around kids. And so that's why TLC have been through this before, right? They just don't need the hassle with it.
I think that's true. One of the other trends that we talk about when we talk about the business is this consolidation that's gone on in the business. We've spent plenty of ink writing about massive deals, hundreds of millions of dollars for reality companies. I'm curious.
I'm leaving right now.
I'm curious how you think this impacts you guys individually as sellers of content and more broadly the industry at large. Good thing, bad thing?
I haven't seen much coming out of it, since last year. I haven't seen.
Well, are you
any-
still
any
independent?
Major development. I'm independent, yeah, but I haven't seen a lot of.
I've got a job.
Was it?
I have a job now.
If they leave you alone, if they literally leave you alone to get on with what you do, I don't see it as a problem. But if they literally want to bring in and make it corporate, then everything is going to be turned around put in a bucket, turned over, and that's the program.
No one's spending $100 million to buy a content company and change it. I mean, they're out of their mind. I mean, in our situation,
I agree.
in our situation with MGM, it's the best thing ever happened because the people at MGM are so much better than me. I've learned, believe me, I've learned so much. I mean, Gary Barber, John Glickman, the team over there are so talented.
Yeah.
Roma Kana, Steve Stark. I've learned so much. And I'm just wrapped on Ben-Hur, which is, I mean, was a chance I ever would have thought 10 years ago I would have produced Ben-Hur.
Did you get the chariot thing right? I just want to make sure you don't have to CGI the
Get the
chariot.
Chinese guy.
Yeah, you need a
Did you use camels?
I know where the camels are in Africa.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
They're all in Morocco.
Yeah, that's right. But it is. I would say to you that one thing, certainly on what I've done with Craig, very, very big scale foreign productions, and it's just a matter of being a good leader. It's like we always treat it like an army, like a military operation, and when you've got hundreds of people in a remote place, all sorts of things can happen, from governmental problems. Like we've had pirates, real pirates, not like ones with patches, like real pirates in the South China Sea with AK-47s, gun
We saw
battles.
the Tom Hanks movie. We know what you're talking about.
Gun battles in Africa,
Who's the
Craig. You
gun
remember?
now?
I mean, the stuff's got to be handled, and it's like, this is not like a joke. Producing these big shows in remote locations is really serious, lives at stake. So you have the lives at stake of the crew. Then you have, if you're doing other shows that could involve kids here, the responsibility of not doing anything icky and trying to do the best checks you can do. Things do slip through the cracks, obviously. And then it's a matter of, are you all a bunch of grown-ups who can deal with legality and morality and merge the two and make a very quick decision? And that's what the networks and the channels are looking for in showrunners. And that's why, honestly, there's so few of us at a certain tier, everyone around this table, and we can probably name a dozen more who are on the big time of can be trusted with big,
What's
complicated
the toughest
decisions.
decision you've had to make in one of those circumstances? Where lives were at stake and you're dealing with foreign governments or other
I
risks?
pulled out of a country completely, literally hours before.
Which one?
Qatar.
Was there soccer going on?
They were
Let's hope
building
there
a soccer
never is.
stadium.
This is kind of next door to your question. 9/11 happened during season 2 of Big Brother. It was near the finale, so there were only 3 house guests left. And CBS had to deal with, okay, how do we not infect the game, but what is our social responsibility? So literally, those 3 people in the Big Brother house were the last 3 people on the planet to know what was going on. And it was interesting observing them because one of them said, have you noticed there's no planes flying around? And so the decision that was made was one by one, they would be brought into the diary room and they would be told 2 planes crashed into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon and the one in the field in Pennsylvania, 2 passenger planes. Whatever question they asked was answered truthfully 1,000%. And it was very interesting to watch how some people wanted to know everything. One person had a cousin who worked in the Twin Towers. She asked, have they found my cousin? Every day, have they found my cousin? Another person who went on to win the game, and some people think he has no social conscience, he didn't really want to know. And he won the game. He stayed focused on his game. And
Did you and your husband Les exchange notes on what to do in a situation like this?
well, I remember I was so emotional because I was covering news then as well. So, and I lived 11 blocks from the World Trade Center. And I said, if you don't tell those people, I'm not going on the air. And he was like, everyone just calm down, take a beat. We're not saying we're not gonna tell, we have to do what's responsible. Everyone was running around like good chicken with their head cut off. And I said, you just need to know, they're not told, this is a live show, I'm not showing up. You guys go have your discussions with the EPs, the 2 EPs, and figure it out, but you know where I stand.
How long did all that take to actually come to a
That I have to
decision?
fact check, I don't know.
Now, talking about the liability that you just mentioned, you know, we had people in Upper Egypt, we had people in Morocco, we had people in a lot of Arab countries when this happened. And my partner, Elise, she said, what am I going to do? She was in Morocco and they were all yelling, Yankee, go home. And so we got her to Portugal. I said, stay in Portugal and go to a remote place north of Lisbon and just wait it out and then we'll see where this all goes. But you know, yeah, this can happen also with our shows that we have around the globe.
I remember on 9/11, we were just prepping Survivor Arabia. I had all my guys in Jordan, all my containers, all my equipment, my tools, everything in the port of Aqaba. And it happened and I was reached at my gym in Malibu by King Abdullah. They can find anybody anytime. He said, you know what's happened, please don't pull out, this is important for the nation. I said, Your Majesty, this is way above me, or something like this. I got on the phone with Leslie Moonves and said, obviously Leslie, we've got a big problem here and we're not going to get our gear out. No way they're going to let the ships out with all our equipment and I've got to get my crew out somehow and we have to do an insurance claim. There won't be a survivor. And Leslie said, actually, there will be a survivor because you are going to get a skeleton crew on a plane and go and find the location. America is expecting Survivor to be on the air. This country moves forward in situations, and I know you will solve the problem. and hung the phone up, and I was
pressure.
And that's like Leslie right there. Is completely solution-oriented and didn't want to have a big discussion with me about all my problems. He said, you're a great producer, you will find the solution. I have all my confidence in you.
As a matter of fact,
Julie's face is enough to
Julie, that's
My favourite format, as I've said to Mark before and Craig, is Survivor. It's my favourite. I think it's just a beautiful format that exposes people, real people. And I got to produce and direct the British version of Survivor, and Mark, Craig probably as well, knows this island of Pulau Tiga very well. We were on this island. It's a mud volcanic island, and the trees are literally, the roots don't go down very far. We had the worst storm, I think, I've ever seen, and the trees were just falling on the contestants, and we had to make a decision then, what are we going to do? Are we going to allow, you know, we were told there was going to be a storm the next night, are we going to pull them in or are we going to leave them there? And we decided in the end to leave them there. But it was done with a lot of chat with the meteorologists and everything else and the islanders that sort of knew about this. I don't think people realize in truth, because there are so many sort of unreality reality shows now and soft scripting and everything else, of how true a program like Survivor is and what it puts the contestants through and challenges them. And I think it's a remarkable series. And
well, you know, we were in the Sahara in Tunis, and a huge sandstorm came through and wiped out everything that was there. I mean, everything. And they were there. We literally had to rescue everybody out of the desert. But, you know, yeah, the stuff, you know, we don't talk about it, but it goes on.
It's a different for me a little because I do a show called Ultimate Fighter, and it is the most violent show on TV. And we're not in remote locations, but we're in a gym. And when these guys fight, and you see some of the most horrific injuries sometimes. Yeah. About a month ago, a kid tried to, and you're right there. He literally fell in his hand to keep him, and his bone came right through. And you're a foot away because it's in a gym where it's like it's right here. I'm sitting right in front of it. And so when you see the shock the kid goes through, and you have medical attention right there, everybody's got to keep their heads real calm. Get the guys in there that know what they're doing. The doctor's got to enter the octagon. You got to wrap the kid. You got to really think in logical steps on how you handle those kind of situations. And you got to have them pre-planned. And you got to do what you do. But Ultimate Fighter, we've seen some of the worst injuries. I mean,
in a situation like that, there's the human side of you that cares for the contestant, the kid, but there's also the producer side of you that says that's compelling material.
Well,
so
it was a fight, you know, it was a fist fight, basically.
And you aired that?
That's what happened. Oh, absolutely, you gotta. We've aired ankles that have just snapped in half, and there's been some really, no one's ever seriously got, like, that's not a serious, that with the bone out, wasn't a serious injury. He went there, he got taped up, you know, got all stitched up, took
I'm
like 3 days.
more worried about their brain sometimes.
Yeah, you're worried about...
If a dancer falls down and smacks their head, we will replay it 3 or 4 times.
But in what Craig's talking about, though, and Craig's a really good producer and a really good friend of mine, and there's a lot of pressure because it's what, you know, a break like that, someone can die from that, getting hit in the head. So you've got to know, whenever Ultimate Fighter is shooting, Craig's on edge. And doesn't want that phone call coming in.
I'm there. I go to every fight.
It's a nightmare.
I go to every single fight on Ultimate Fighter.
But why? Is that because?
Just because it's a serious business.
Okay.
It's an absolute serious business.
So as your responsibility,
you have to be there.
Got it.
Yeah,
but sport, any sport now is
you're a good leader.
Yeah, it's the only one I will go to every single time. I mean, we have to MRI everybody that that's a contestant, and one year we had a kid who had an aneurysm. And we sat around and go, how do you tell this 22-year-old kid you have a brain aneurysm? And you really got to sit them down and talk to the doctor and say, all right, sit them down, say, look, kid, you got a brain aneurysm. You got to go get that repaired. Looks like it can be repaired. Here's a doctor. You just have to sort of.
But without the show, he may not have found out.
He would have never, he would have never found out because an MRI is $10,000. Right. And kids don't do it. And you have to look around the table here. And I was just thinking this out loud. I'm just going to think it out loud. Your show's Survivor's 30 seasons, yeah?
Yes.
How many seasons?
27.
27.
We're starting our 17th and our 17th year. We're only once a year, they're twice a year, but we've been all on the same time.
We're twice a year. It's our 22nd season. And how many for you?
Well, once a year too, so it's 15th. Yeah, 12th for dance, 15th for us.
I'm not digressing. That's amazing statistics.
No question.
It really is. It goes to the quality of effort everybody at this table puts on the table.
Yes.
You know, we all stand up for our shows and we all work hard for them and we all know them.
Yep.
You know, and you don't get through 22 seasons of Ultimate Fighter or 30 seasons of Survivor or all these seasons. Yours is probably one of the hardest shows to produce because you're traveling and.
I like it that way.
Yeah. Probably one of the hardest shows to produce.
It's also, you look at, and we get a lot of the credit, but the teams under us are amazing. Really high quality producers, editors, shooters, you know, and
shooting's gotten tougher. Yes. Everyone's saying reality shows are cheap to make.
They're not.
They're really not.
Can we go to the networks and tell them they're not that fucking cheap to make? How about that?
How many cameras do you use now on Street?
On Street Outlaws?
About 50. How many?
40.
40 cameras. Yeah.
I'm curious. One of the other roles that we talk about is the role of the host, and I think if you do it really well, you make it look easy. What don't people realize?
For me, it's the prep that you do that goes into it. So what you do is, I'm really quite nerdy. I was always a bit of a geek, and I was slightly academic at school, and so I have that tendency anyway. And so it's my prep that I know, it's my lines that I know where I've got to be, I know what I've got to do. I know I've written script, we've gone through it, we know absolutely everything, so that when it actually comes to being in the moment, you can tune in and tune out of the person in your ear, and you know exactly where they've got to be and what camera you're on and what light and what cue you need for the sting, for the sound, and you don't even think about it, and you're just in the moment with the person. And that's the only way you can do it, because otherwise you miss all the best bits, because you're too busy worried about who's screaming in your ear and the mechanics of it. You know, I've seen some terrible, there's been terrible times where you see people on screen and you know that people are screaming into their ear. Knowing what I know, I just know that people are screaming and they're saying they're running out of time, and they can barely get their words out, and then someone, a 14-year-old kid will drop to their knees because they're leaving the show, and they'll pat them on the head, and you think to yourself, oh my God.
Kat, you're talking about live TV, right? Yeah, with live TV, exactly.
You can't do that.
You have many plates spinning in the air.
You have so many, and again, like Mark said, it's also your producer on the show as well. They've also got to trust you too, because otherwise they're 2 seconds behind if they're sitting in a gallery watching all the screens, and then they're trying to tell you a question to us. They're behind already, whereas you're in the moment with the person.
And plus, Kat listens to what's said to her, so if she's being told what the next question is, she ignores that because she wants to, get and participate with the contestant.
It's the moment.
Plus, Kat will also come into the room with the judges and, say, why isn't little Julie Chen in the top 20? I've spoken to her and she's fantastic. What's wrong with her? And she'll fight for kids as well.
You can't underestimate the value of great on-air talent.
No.
Because it's like a three-ring circus, these live shows. Crazy. And great talent who are composed, can listen to what's going on and know how to react in the moment, because the camera will catch every inauthenticity.
Everything.
Yeah. And the audience know immediately. And the minute the host has an inauthentic moment, it's over.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
It's very, I don't think a lot of people, because the great hosts, and especially you two are on camera all the time, make it look so easy. Yeah. And make it look, like you look at Jeff Probst, makes it look really, really easy.
It's a thing of, and this is just my own thing, but I won't lie on a camera. I won't. I'll find something else to say if I need to, but I'm not going to lie, because I think that the audience they won't be able to go, well, she doesn't believe that, or my nose is growing like Pinocchio, but they'll turn around and they'll go, there's something that's not quite right.
Yeah,
it's like a weird, and so I just won't. So I'll say something else, believe you me, I'll say something else, but I won't say,
and that's what happens with the soft scripted shows as well, that people go, there's something that's not right about this.
But in those, there's a comedy element. In the soft scripted shows, I think the audience completely understand it's sort of scripted and accept it as such.
Yeah, do they care?
No, they don't care.
I think they don't care.
I think
I really think they don't care.
I think it affects reality television.
No, it does.
Yeah, but they got huge
But I think they
huge
don't care,
ratings.
and there's room for everybody.
I don't make that kind of stuff, and I don't think anyone here's really making that sort of stuff. But it works. I mean, I don't know how to make that, but there's a lot of people with a lot of ratings.
Well, Duck Dynasty for years was one of the biggest shows on television, and that fits squarely into that.
Yep.
When you say it hurts you, it hurts the genre, in what way?
I think, not so much the Duck Dynasties, but the...
Real Housewives?
Yeah.
Because like when the table got flipped, right?
Yeah, you think, oh, they're just recording something, and then you go, oh, have they rehearsed this? Has this been produced now? And I think, I was always accused of manipulating figures on American Idol. And it's not real. The figures are wrong. The votes are, you're manipulating. Why on earth would we want to? We want America to vote anyway because it's the success of the Americans voting to the person that makes them.
It's a criminal offence.
It's a criminal offence.
Yeah.
Plus, there were a number of AT&T and telescopes in the way anyway. Yeah. But the minute you start looking at reality shows and saying, is this real? Is this really happening? I think it affects us.
Unless that happens to be the genre and that people are suspending their disbelief,
Yeah,
and they don't care, and they're tuning in for any reason.
I agree with that.
I like Housewives. I mean, occasionally Housewives is fun to watch.
Yeah.
I mean,
course.
because they're a little nutty.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch.
And they make great contestants on Apprentice.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Which
mean,
is
come on.
another great franchise.
When whoever it was
But you
popped
don't
off
cheat
her
that.
leg,
Oh,
trust
yeah.
me, that was not
What's
in the
her
moment.
name?
I don't know, but
She was
it
great.
was planned.
It's the
They got
it's
the
the
shot.
Beverly Hills House. No, it's New York Housewives.
think it's New York,
It's
but-
New York Housewives lady. She popped her leg off.
But I will
Maybe
say,
it was
I
suggested
wish
to her.
I knew her.
don't
I know her name. It's on the tip of my tongue.
I love that
But
we
we'll-
found your hidden
Yeah.
viewing
Guilty
pleasure.
pleasure.
I watch
the last
everything.
season when the phone was stolen on Apprentice was real. There was nothing faked about
be
it,
famous.
and they're still not speaking.
One of the other pieces that you guys have to deal with is media criticism. And I mean, you mentioned early on in The Voice, no one sort of thought it was, that there was room for another one of these shows. For years, when you were on Idol, as it was, over the hump of the biggest show on television, you would hear every ratings point you lost, you would hear about it. How do you manage that media feedback? How are you prepared to manage it now that Voice will be the only major singing show on television?
Because listen, everyone at this table gets paid really well and have great lives, and you're going to play the game. It's like if you're a boxer, don't cry because you got hit in the face, right? It's part of the job. Everyone at this table has to get up in the morning and look at the ratings and what the critics say. If you can't take it, don't play the game. Yeah. Because we're all so happy when people say great things about us and the ratings are great. And so we've got to take its ups and downs. We've all had ups and downs in our careers. And, the critics have got a job to do. And,
But doesn't it drive you wild when the critics say something that is not accurate? It's not about an opinion thing. But like when we had the racism in the Big Brother house, they were like, oh, CBS probably planned it this way to create the controversy. Really? If you saw how many 3 a.m. in the morning phone calls that were happening at my house and other people, disrupting people's vacations, weekends, trust me, it wasn't a plant, it wasn't planned, we didn't think. So it drives me crazy when the criticism is so far off base.
No, that's right. That's right. But, and especially, by the way, I would say to you, I have personally been yelled at by Leslie Moonves, and it's not a great experience. And CBS runs really, really tight. Like we know, CBS is very corporate. And so in terms of the CBS shows, all the networks are obviously very good, but CBS is very, very corporate and very cautious.
When did Leslie yell at you? This is
I know, we need to hear
here.
this.
I
I
like
wanna
this.
Are you kidding me?
He did look like a naughty schoolboy.
You did, really?
But very, very rarely. But just for
He's yelled at me and I don't work for him.
By the way, but when he yells, let me just say to defend my husband, he doesn't realize he's yelling, because I remember the first time I saw him do one of these, and it was like, blah, 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 or it's off the table, boom. And I was like hiding. I was like, oh. And he goes, we're going for dinner. I was like, yeah, wherever you want.
I never forget when I sold the show to Leslie. I never forget. I was really, it was a scary moment to sit in the room with him. But he's very relaxed always. And he got into an argument with one of the agents, and they really went for it. And Leslie got really furious with me. And he did exactly what you said. He turned to me and said, got nothing to do with you, Bert. Don't worry about it. And then he yelled again.
He just compartmentalized.
He's completely.
He's very fair.
It's not about you.
It was frustrating on Idol when we went, I think it was season 7, from like 35 million to 30 million. It's the end of American Idol. We're getting 30 million viewers, for goodness sake. So that gets frustrating. Yeah. But as Mark rightly said, if you come into the business, you accept the rules of the business. And if your surfboard comes in, wait for the next big wave, pick it up and get out of the way.
And also, what's exciting is all of us want the next big hit. Mm-hmm. You want to write about the next big hit, and we don't know when it's coming. There is one coming, and it's exciting. It's really exciting. And so it's a life of peaks and valleys. It's not like flatlands. And we choose those peaks and valleys because we're all waiting for that next show. And it could be tomorrow. Someone could say, tomorrow, I've got an idea. And you've got to be either create ideas or be able to listen And when you hear a good idea, recognize it. You know, and by the way, as producers have the toughest job, right? They're first in and last out. Right?
That's right.
It's a long, long way to go, and it's hard to find hits, but it's exciting.
The digital world is exciting now as well. I think that offers us all really great opportunities.
But look at Mark, perfect example. Survivor was pitched and pitched and pitched, rejected by my husband. Finally, Mark, right, amazing, knows how to sell it. CBS puts it on during the summer instead of running reruns, not expecting it to become the juggernaut that it still is today. So it's about execution. You know, look, you could have Cheers, one of the biggest, you know, or Friends, one of the biggest comedies ever. What's it about? It was the execution. A bunch of people sitting around a coffee shop, a bunch of people sitting around a bar. It's about the execution. Everybody in this room, they know how to execute it.
It's a connection with your audience too. I mean, no one here around the table goes out to make a bad show. We don't always have successes, but we don't make a bad show. We make the best show we can.
Out of all,
It took
just one
5 years.
last question, maybe you can interject. If you had to choose your most favorite or most meaningful moment from one of your shows, what would it be? So maybe you have an answer
boy,
that's that.
Or
Or a moment that really felt like I'm actually doing good work. My work's resonating with people. Reality is not all bad. We're actually
Do you want me to
making
start
quality
since
programming.
we're giving people- okay.
Sure.
When I first was hosting Big Brother, I was also anchoring the news in the morning at CBS. And I got sent to cover the war. So there I am. This is before we knew that there weren't weapons of mass destruction, okay? So all I know is that every time those sirens went off, you had to say, gas, 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 put on your gas mask, and run to, like, wherever you were, the bomb shelter, the bottom of the hotel, whatever. It was a life or death situation. So we were with the military. We all had to run into, like, this bunker. Gas, gas, gas. We all have our gas until you hear the ring, and you get the all clear. You could take it off. And I remember thinking in that moment, forget Big Brother, that silly little reality show. This is real life. This is where it's at. This is life or death. And so many members of the military, they were just so, thank God bless the U.S. military. They were so cool, calm, and collected. They're like, can we talk to you about Big Brother? I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, can I hold on to you for 1 minute? But in that moment, I thought, who's to judge?
That's right.
That's their escapism, probably.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do others have moments like that?
But I also think that the Amazing Race is almost like a business card around the world to show that we're actually nice people and we're good people and bring people closer together. And I think, and as a result, there's a lot of franchises going on. Right now we're doing one in China. They have between 80 and 100 million viewers. It's phenomenal where you bring people really together. I think the Amazing Race, that brand has been instrumental in being a good partner around the world and bring people together.
I'm really proud of the fact that I think we've got a lot of American fathers now accepting the fact that their sons want to be dancers. And I'm really proud that in a time when the arts are being so dismissed in education, that So You Think You Can Dance has been around for 10 years.
I think all the shows, I think they offer people an opportunity to springboard to something else, no matter what you do. And I think it actually does, it can change people's lives if people see the opportunity and grab it with both hands and turn it into something that's going to make a difference. You know, for us, there are kids that come from very, very, economically challenged, let's say, families, and they come onto the show, and you only hear these stories when you sit and you talk, and you turn around and you go, oh my God, I'm so lucky, I can't bet. Because you sit there and they'll turn around, and there was one girl this season, she had never been on an aeroplane before until we flew her to Vegas. She'd never been out of the Bronx before, and she looked after her handicapped mother, and her father was an alcoholic and there was like there's a whole story, and you suddenly turn around and you go, yeah, we are looking for America's favorite dancer, and there is going to be a winner at the end of it. But in actual fact, that girl's life could be completely changed beyond recognition, so her wildest dreams could come true if she wants it and if she's prepared to work at it. So, you know, she could come on the show and she could go on tour with Lady Gaga, or she could go and be in a step-up
She can become Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes,
and she
indeed.
could. And when you take somebody from that and you go, oh my God, this could completely transform their life.
Carrie Underwood story.
Yeah,
That's right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I'd have to agree with you on that. I mean, because we pluck people out of obscurity on every single show. None of our shows are, you know, they're not cast in any way. And these little reality shows we do, like Street Outlaws, and these guys have nothing. And when we find them and say, hey, do you want to be on TV? And they eventually become something from being on TV. They make money, they get a family, they get married, and you see them evolve, and you're on with them for 10 seasons. I mean, that's probably the give back, I guess, right? I mean, you're sort of, you know, it's like if you didn't exist, if you wouldn't have found them, what would their lives completely changed and transformed because we were able to think about it and look at someone and say, hey, you should be on TV. And we made it special for them, and we put them in a little box, and we made the box real special, and we grew it, and they became something they would have never become without
Shark Tank.
our
Look
help.
at the things that are happening on Shark Tank.
Shark Tank, $66 million invested, 10,000 new jobs created.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's amazing.
It's a great show, too.
It's
It's
a
an absolutely great show.
Yeah.
I got to say, hard to not love Survivor in its 29th and 30th seasons going up against American Idol and doubling American Idol's demos and viewers head to head.
Wow. Hit me with that one.
That was a nice stat to end on.
They should never have fired me.
We actually have a couple fun speed round questions. So be clever, but also be brief. Whose life would you like to turn into a docuseries whose life already hasn't been turned into a docuseries, and why? We'll start with Julie.
Ooh. No, I don't have one yet. Let me think.
Okay, maybe I'll start with Craig.
I wanted to do the ex-mayor of New York. What's his name?
Rudy
Bloomberg?
Giuliani?
No.
Bloomberg.
The other, Bloomberg. I said it in print, I think, in yours. I'd love to do a reality show with Bloomberg. So if he's listening to this, I think he'd be a spectacular president and a great reality television host.
All right. Mark, how about you?
I really want to, what I did with Sarah Palin's Alaska, which I loved that show. It's the #1 show ever on TLC. And I'd really like to do Vladimir Putin's Russia.
Oh my
Yes.
God. Which she can see from her porch, so it works out.
And I have reached out to him. I really want to see Russia through his eyes.
You've reached out to Putin.
Yes.
And heard nothing back, I assume.
How'd you know that?
I asked you, what have you heard back?
I would think I can probably get through to most people.
So,
need to go
what
back
has
to that
the
gym in
reaction
Malibu.
been? Now I'm interested.
No comment.
Smart man. Bertram, do you have one?
Few people have tried Putin, by the way. I've tried too.
Who else at this table has tried Putin? Now I'm intrigued.
It's fascinating. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
And I think we have a very different view on Russia. And I'm not always sure if it's right, because I spent a lot of time in
That's
Russia.
right.
And it's pretty, there are really super people there.
Amazing place, super
Amazing.
smart people,
Yeah.
and I'd love us to see through his eyes. Nothing, not politics or war, just Russia, the people, the adventure.
Very,
Nigel, do you
very
have
warm people.
Yeah, I was speaking to Putin yesterday. He said he's going to give Mark a call tomorrow. My person is Rudolf Nureyev. From the defection through, he became a huge pop star, one of the early pop stars in England.
That's right.
And then, America helped him tremendously to get back into Russia to see his dying mother. And of course, he was one of the few people to die of AIDS when he thought he was a god and invulnerable. So it's an absolutely incredible story.
There's-
Fascinating
that is a
story,
great
and the way
story,
he
yeah.
defected in the airport and the way that all went down.
In
was
France.
Are you making the movie?
unbelievable.
I'm talking with HBO.
I think you're right. Yeah,
Breaking
we
news.
dealt with it a few years ago. Also, it's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine who was very, very close friends of his, and the defection in Paris and all that stuff is
He was a
fascinating.
great friend of Mick Jagger. It didn't start that way. He went for lunch with him, and Mick Jagger came out and said, I think he's one of the greatest blokes I've ever met. And Nureyev came out and said, what a boring man, that Mick Jagger. So there's great, stuff.
great.
There's
It's
Bowie and
fantastic
everything
story.
there.
It is amazing.
Julie and Kath, do you have?
Yeah, he recently died, but Lee Kuan Yew, who really transformed Singapore, a small island nation, when Lee Kuan Yew, was a young man, and when Singapore, no one knew where Singapore was or what it was. What he did for that small island nation, what he did for its economy, its people. I'm partial. My mother's side of the family is there, but it is probably the cleanest, safest country with the best food, and people live well and they get along. He's dead now, but and he just recently died. Yeah. But I think a lot of world leaders can learn a lot from what he did in creating.
It's an incredible place, and it used to be a total dump. There's no question about it. I mean, it's amazing what they've done there.
All right, Kat, who are you?
I'd like to do a documentary about Studio 54 and New York back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, in a time where not everybody knew exactly what was going on, when young creative people could come into the city, and it was a real melting pot for them to all kind of go off in their separate ways, and the whole kind of club scene and Studio 54 and how there'd be all these different levels, and how it was like the heartbeat of the city.
I love that. All right, we're doing one more. What classic reality series or game show, if you could go back in time and reboot, bring back today, what would you do?
American Idol.
What would you do differently?
Not put it on Wednesdays against Survivor.
I loved Battle of the Network Stars. I've pitched my husband multiple times, but what did I know? I was a kid watching Wonder Woman and people from these sitcoms, and he's like, it never made money. I'm like, oh.
It was fun.
I want to see Battle of the Network.
The Gong Show was fun, wasn't it?
It was hilarious.
Why has nobody done the Gong Show? It'd be
Fantastic.
fabulous.
But there was also the host. I mean, that
Chuck
guy
Barris.
was, that guy was
I want to
phenomenal.
reboot American Gladiators.
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
I made that in the UK, and it was just enormous, wasn't it?
It was
Kat?
humongous.
It was the first show that ever got sponsored by Kellogg's, and the gladiators were on the front of the packets.
Everybody
And
had
then
those
all of a
fingers.
sudden, the press hit on, well,
like
why are they
he's going
so
to do
big? Where, are they on steroids? And this whole steroid story came in.
I'm just saying, MGM, I'm just saying.
Craig, do you have a beloved
Newlywed
old
Game.
show?
Yeah, great.
I'd love to see a Piligian version of Newlywed Game.
It'd be a fun show to do, right?
A lot of swearing.
A lot of swearing, more fighting.
Trust me, Craig's a lot more demure around his wife, trust me. She's beautiful and smart.
Well,
I think there's a dating show, but I don't know what it is. I used to love Blind
Love
Date.
Connection?
Back in the...
Which one?
There was a show called Blind Date back in the UK, do you remember, with
Yes.
Cilla Black?
Yes.
Who was so charming with it as well. I think there's got to be a dating show out there it needs to happen, but I don't know what it is.
Well, in our next episode, we'll expect a pitch from each of you.
There
on
you
that.
go.
Matter. Thank you very much for your time. Somebody's got to know. We're going behind the scenes of TV, We're sitting down with the more reality sequence. I'm malfunctioning.
And I'm Lacey Rose. I can't.
Squirrels on fire.
Let's jump right in.
We're done with that part, honey.